That's the state of your higher consciousness. When I say higher consciousness, I'm talking about the highest level of consciousness. The highest level of consciousness is not having an experience at all. That same peak bliss state is often what people encounter when they have a near-death experience or when they die and come back to life. You're not alive there. It feels like absolute bliss, absolute rest, absolute joy. We can ascribe different words to it. In other words, it's an absolute relief of everything, all the pressure or any experience we have in this life. It's like that moment of, you ever had a just really, really bad fucked up dream? There's like a weird dream you have at night, and it's like, that's just screwed up. And you wake up and you're like, wow, I'm relieved to be awake. Thank God that's not real. Thank God that was just a dream, right? That moment when you wake up, that's bliss state for the version of you that was in the dream. So you spend a little bit of time here, then you lay back down, you go to bed the next night, and the dream continues. Imagine that dream you is like, wait a second. When I woke up and I was living a human life, and in that time, instead of this thing, I woke up there and there was this absolute bliss energy. And for a moment, I had a sliver of it here in the dream state, and then it's gone. So dream you might be trying to extract insights from waking you here, thinking you're its higher self. Absolutely plausible, by the way, with the infinite multiplicity of the multiverse. But I'm just sharing that not as a factual, that's how it works, but just as an analogy of like kind of what's going on. So we have this peak awakening state. We break into some new level of consciousness and we access this state that is non-experiential. Nothing's happening. Absolute stillness. Scientists would call it dark matter. Quantum physicists call it the quantum field. They also call it superposition. Everything and nothing all at once. Nothing can happen there. So you can't go there and still be here. But you can take insights from that place and bring it into here and create whatever you want here. That experience of everything and nothing all at once, which is complete neutrality, which is, we also might call it perfect love because it has allowance for all the bad, all the good, all the ups, all the downs, all the ons, all the offs, all the light, all the dark, all of it all at once. It's complete allowance. It feels like bliss. It feels like love. It feels like joy because in the moment you touch it, it has full allowance for you too. It still has full allowance for you here now as well, even if you're not feeling it. It has full allowance for you to be connected to it and not connected to it. It is also, you might call it the energy of absolute indifference and I don't give a fuck. Do whatever you want. You want to be connected to that energy? Be connected to that energy. You want to not be connected to that energy? That's fine. Be in isolation from it, be in separation from it. Some people call it God. Some people call it source. Some people call it higher power. Whatever we want to call it, doesn't matter. When we make contact with it, when we connect with it, when we begin to experience it, it shatters our perceptions of what we're doing here and goes, wait a second, what if I were to live my life in the same way? It feels really good. It feels joy and bliss because there is full allowance for us to be what we are in that moment. And in all the moments before where we were not connected to it, and in all the moments afterwards where sometimes we are and sometimes we aren't. That full allowance, that unconditionality of that essence feels like heaven, feels like bliss, feels like joy. It's actually none of those things, though. It just is. And it also isn't. It's superposition. Because it's superposition, and it has allowance for all states simultaneously, that to any given state, any given individualized experience, will associate a meaning to that unindividualized experience of the source consciousness as perfect love, or bliss, or joy, or, completely feeling connected, right? We will associate those meanings to it because from our individualized perspective or our polarized perspective, we are in a state. We are not in a superposition. We are in a given state. From any given state, any given position, when we connect and make contact with the superposition version of ourselves or the source consciousness, it has the full allowance for that, for our state. So it feels like, I'm finally home. It feels like arrival at a place of being home. So it feels really good, and that's the super high that we get. And it starts to make us question everything. And after one of those peak experiences, we might have this experience of like instant manifestations or really rapid ability to like think something and it creates. Why? Because our brain is still vibrating in the space of superposition, or at least closer to it, which means our entire reality is much more flexible because it's also in superposition or closer to it. In other words, all of the possible realities are much easier to just access whichever one you want because you can just swap this reality out for another one because you're closer to that state of unconditional vibration to everything. So then we kind of come down from that high and we go down into the bottom end of the frequency, and which is also valid in that superposition state as well. But the bottom end of the frequency, the other polarization, is the part of ourselves that doesn't know anything about this. So we go into that bottom end of the frequency and we start trying to raise the vibration and get out of it and see why the hell this is so hard and why the instant manifestations are gone and why things are slow. And we put ourselves through a bunch of turmoil while we're trying to get back to the peak state. Instead, what we need to do is really simple. So the simplicity end of it is to recognize that the state that is opposite that peak state, the down state, we might call it, okay, where it's like all of this struggle, that place is equally as held in superposition with that same peak state. They are in the same peak state together. Both are valid options. You never left the peak state. Simply exploring another experience within the superposition and all the possibilities that are there. So, okay, with that, can we bring the full allowance that we felt when we accessed that bliss state for the first time, that complete allowance, the bliss, the joy, that unconditional love that was there suddenly in whatever way we experienced it? Can we bring that and share that with a part of ourselves that exists in the other polarization? And this is why we approach with perfect love for every part of ourselves, even the screwed up part, even the part that's got all the old patterns that we don't want, even the part that we feel like holds us back. We come with perfect love because we are effectively being the messenger that is carrying what we discovered in the peak state of connection. We're carrying that to the other part of ourself that has been existing in the separation, to show it that even though it feels like it is in separation, it is simply in the experience of separation because it is using its connection to all the possible superpositions to create the one position that feels separate. Because it's also valid. It's also one of the experiences that we can do. Nothing wrong with it. As we can begin to approach that with that complete unconditionality, perfect love and perfect trust for ourselves and every version of ourselves that is either in the bliss state or not in the bliss state or anywhere in between. Our current state too, when we can be with ourselves always, with that same level of absolute allowance that we access in that bliss state for a moment. We bring that to every part of ourselves. And you become the bliss state for the part of yourself that has never touched it yet, that has never experienced it yet. You become the messenger of that joy to a part of yourself that doesn't know what that is yet. And there are parts of ourselves that don't know what that is and are scared of it too. Valid. So we also have the allowance for that. When I say unconditional, perfect love and perfect trust, that is an important aspect. Because if we come to that part of ourselves that is in that lower state of separation, I'm using lower as a metaphorical thing just so our human brains can understand, not that anything is actually lower, better, or worse. When we come to the part of ourselves that is in that separate state, that doesn't have that connection or hasn't experienced it yet, so it's in the dip. If we are coming to it to bring this love and bliss to it and show it how it can choose differently, on condition that we can get back to the bliss state, that's not unconditional love. That's not perfect love or perfect trust. That's not superposition at all. That's highly polarized. So we're not bringing that energy through. When you're meeting yourself to do any kind of healing work or inner growth work or making a choice or expansion or integration, whatever we want to call it, if you are meeting yourself in that place to make some changes so that you can get back to the bliss state, you're doing it with an insistence on the outcome, which is not unconditional. It is not the energy of the higher consciousness. And that's also okay. We can do that. There's nothing wrong with that too. Except for the fact that it never does lead to the end because the means to the end doesn't create the necessary relationship within yourself to create the harmonic collaboration. See, that moment of instant manifestation where things just go into place and you could just think and it aligns, right? That happens because you were met by this higher consciousness version of yourself, which is actually every version of yourself compiled. It includes the current version now. So all superpositions. When you're met from that perspective, you receive the unconditional love, and therefore you go forward from that in a highly collaborative state with it. Then you become the messenger to take this to the part of yourself that hasn't ever experienced that, which lives over in the dip. So you go to the dip, and if you bring that over and you bring it with conditionality, it can never fully collaborate with you because the connection can't happen. So this is weird, kind of complex world of walking this kind of a razor's edge of having intention and choice, but also having full allowance to let that other part of yourself do whatever it wants to do, whatever it needs to do, whatever it feels is necessary, while also providing guidance and insight and clarity and direction as to what it is that you're choosing, but without trying to force it to go there and allowing it to go when it's ready, allowing it to remain in that separation dip state for also as long as it needs. When we do this, that bliss state begins to permeate all sides of our frequency, the oscillation of our life. Life goes up and down. We have happy moments and sad moments. We have exciting moments and dull moments. It's just life. Life is meant to be experienced. From an individual state of being, we will never exist in infinite bliss state because you're not the source superposition version of yourself. If you were that, you would not be here having this experience. However, if you were that, a part of you would be here having this experience and doing exactly what you're doing right now. Because this part of you is one tiny aspect of infinite superposition possibilities within your source consciousness. Making sense? So we become the messenger to ourselves. Sometimes that also looks like being a messenger to other people through anything. Could be coaching work, healing sessions, could be posting a TikTok, could be writing a book, right? Sometimes we become messengers to other people because they are also an aspect of that same source consciousness that's in superposition. So to wake up yourself, we need to wake up everyone else. To wake up everyone else, we must wake up ourselves. So it really comes down to that no insistence on the outcome and being the carrier of that joy and bliss into every part of ourself that hasn't felt it yet.